Well, hey, y'all, welcome to the Common Good Podcast, 16th of September, Tuesday afternoon. Sorry for the late start, those of you that build your Tuesday morning schedules around the podcast. A lot going on in both of our lives on this Tuesday morning, so glad to be able to get on now. And Rob, I'll tell you, I've got puffy eyes. You ever get that puffy eye feeling, like where your eyes feel, like your face feels tired? Like your body might be all right, but somehow your face feels like... I have that. I was in Seattle doing a bunch of things around our We the People Ride film and around immigration, and had some great showings out there, and it was fabulous and all that. But man, I'll tell you what, I am beat.
Have they started building the wall yet to keep the Canadians out?
Everywhere I looked, I could not find a wall. Not painted black, not in its rusty brown color that you'd see down at the southern border. Yeah, curiously. And me living in a border state, I've been up to the Canadian border. No wall.
Yeah.
It's almost as if you can be a country without a wall.
Yeah.
It's almost as if you can have borders without a wall.
Oh, interesting.
Hey, anyway, how are things squirreled away somewhere outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas?
You know, things today are annoyingly hot. We are, mid-September.
Okay.
We should be, I mean, it might not be sweater weather yet, but it should be like long shirt, long sleeve weather. I want to start thinking about like apple cider and, little feelings of fall. We're mid-September, but no.
But is that true in Arkansas, or are you conjuring up your
growing up in Cleveland, Ohio,
Midwestern?
Yeah, that's right. Maybe the body keeps the score, and I'm ready for it to be cooler than it is. But it is.
I was raised in a Midwestern town, and live in that same Midwestern.
John Cougar Mellencamp.
I was born in a mid-sized suburb town. And right now in Minnesota, holding this up to the screen, this is Minneapolis right now. 88 degrees, feels like 92.
Yeah.
And
here
humid
it's 92,
as all
feels
get
like
up.
97. And it's just...
Well, I'll tell you what, buddy. I will take it, though. I like walking out there and feeling one last kiss of the sun, one last warm up, one last little bit. Yeah. Hey, I'm sort of glad
Doug, has anything happened since we last talked?
What I was just thinking. I'm sort of glad we didn't get on last week. We had some other programming, and maybe many of you saw the other programming. By the way, if you're in the chat, we'd love to know where you're from and how it's feeling there. Both, I don't know, weather-wise, but also, I don't know, just how's it going. So last week, Charlie Kirk was shot by a single bullet from an assassin. We immediately came out and called it an assassination in our messaging. And I was surprised at the number of people who, in response to our emails and social posts, who said they agree with us politically and all that, would have no comfort at all in calling it an assassination. They didn't think it was political. They thought it was other things. I've been quite confused by the response of people who I agree with politically and feel ourselves to be pulling the rope in the same direction for the future of our country, in how people responded to this particular set of actions. So that was awfully disturbing. And I'll tell you, Rob, I was shaken when it happened. I mean, Shelley that day said, "Man, you've been sighing a lot today." These big kind of cleansing breath sighs. That whole day, it was partly because I watched the video, the close-up one.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't recommend it unless somebody has some reason they feel they should see it, which I did, actually. I knew it was going to be graphic, and I felt like, well, if it's going to be in the public space, I feel like, because of the work we do, I would want to have that firsthand knowledge of it. And I was not comforted by what I saw. It was terrible.
No. Yeah, it just absolutely shocking news. I was sitting with a buddy at the cigar shop, and the owner of the cigar shop just walked over and said, "Charlie Kirk's been shot." And I was like, oh. And then the person I was sitting with said, "Who's that?"
Yeah. Yep.
You know, because just, even smart, intelligent, politically engaged people don't go nearly this deep into this kind of stuff. And so, immediately jumping on Twitter, I think maybe the first thing I did was, shoot a group text to you and a few others. And then just horrific to see the video. I was watching a number of conservative, Christian, Republican friends of mine absorb the news in real time, in person. For me, much of the reaction that I observed wasn't just online; it was in person. As friends of mine at the cigar shop who are Christians and conservatives and Republicans and big fans of Charlie Kirk were absorbing what had taken place. And then, the immediate speculation. You know what I think about? One of the things that frustrates me about, Doug, I'm a huge sports fan, big sports fan.
Some sports, let's be clear. Your WNBA commitments are very, very weak ties to a WNBA team. Are the Minnesota Lynx your chosen team for WNBA following?
No.
Okay. Well, I would just offer them to you if you're looking for one to round out your sports reputation.
One of the things I hate about post-game shows, you watch the Super Bowl, and then after the Super Bowl, the commentators sit around and tell you about what you just saw.
Yep.
Often what happens in those conversations is there's an immediate discussion of, is this the greatest Super Bowl of all time? There's no sense of hey, we got to let this sit and simmer. Let's see how this stacks up, when we're not in this particular moment. And it frustrates me. And it's that need to immediately classify something.
Yeah.
We saw that happening in real time with the Charlie Kirk situation, where, I was hearing it in my ears from people saying, this is persecution. They're shooting us because we're Christians. I was seeing similar responses online and social media. Immediate talk of civil war. And then, immediate designation of, who would do this, what their motivations would be.
Yeah.
And, just that desire to peg this on somebody, and typically your political opponents, as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And that was disturbing to see, because that doesn't help. It doesn't help at all, because, often, that old, you never get a second chance to make a first impression kind of thing. People make a decision about what the shooter was, who the shooter was, what their motivation was, and what their first impression is.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be hard to pull them off of that.
Yeah, for all of us. Yep.
Yep. And there's no time for any facts to happen.
Yeah. And, people who do this kind of work in helping humans understand how to engage with difficult situations will often note the difference between a reaction and a response.
Yeah.
And we almost all have both of those. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they match and they track each other, and they're a version of one another. And sometimes they're really different. And in this one, and it was similar with the execution of Melissa Hortman, when we found out that Melissa Hortman, the politician from Minnesota, where I live here, and former Speaker of the State House in the legislature, was gunned down in her own home. And another politician was shot, and their spouses, in the middle of the night. There was an initial reaction, and then later you got to some responses when the deeper story came out. Yeah. I don't think we can suggest to ourselves that we're going to limit reactions. In fact, reactions are often not something that comes from the more considered side of your brain or your heart or your life or something. They are sort of instantaneous, and they come from a lot of things. And they tell you a lot about yourself as well, how someone reacts, what's the initial unthoughtful sort of, pre-malignia, what's part of the brain,
This is not my area.
Malignia response. And then you can have a more considered response. In this situation with Charlie Kirk's murder, I reacted with, that was an assassination. I continued to believe it was. And I will call it an assassination and a political assassination because Charlie Kirk was a political operative. Look, the only reason people know or cared about Charlie Kirk was his operation inside the Trump campaign and him as a surrogate for Donald Trump. That's the only reason that we pushed out the information his response to our ad back in November when we put out the women's voting booth ad where women voted the way they wanted to and didn't feel the need to check that with their husbands. And his response to it was, no decent woman of honor would not vote the way her husband tells her to. That was only meaningful, not because Charlie Kirk was some guy, 31-year-old guy who ran some nonprofit that wanted to work with college students or was a hyper-fundamentalist conservative. It was because of his role in leading the on-the-ground operation for the Trump campaign. Yeah. He is fundamentally a political operative. And if you're ever in conversations with your friends who are like, no, he's first and foremost a Christian man, that's not why you know about him. Let me just make it perfectly clear to anybody who knows Charlie Kirk and follows his podcast or anything. You care about Charlie Kirk because of his relationship to the president of the United States, the now president and the former candidate. Look, if Charlie Kirk had come out and said a week ago, 2 weeks ago, hey, after this Epstein thing with Trump, because he walked right up to this line, he said, I am totally, like, the White House has to come out and release all the records about Epstein. And then he walked it back after Donald called him and lectured him and threatened him. Because Donald Trump told us he called and lectured and threatened, right? He literally posted that he did and then said it out loud that he did. And Charlie Kirk was
probably a perfect call.
And Charlie Kirk was in that was in that space. If Charlie Kirk had said after that, look, I'm done with Donald Trump. So many Christian followers of Charlie Kirk would have found it hard to reconcile those two things and considered and continue to follow him. I'm only bringing that up because we have to see Charlie Kirk in the lens of his public persona. Now, I know nothing about his private persona. I know nothing about his family life. I actually know nothing about his personal faith, but I do know what he says and how he acts in the world. And that is as a political operative. So this was a political assassination because unless someone said that the shooter was connected to Charlie Kirk in some other personal way, which could have been the case. Turns out there's no information to support that idea. So this was somebody whose reaction to him was his public persona. And his public persona is a political one. Not even fundamentally a religious one, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Look, Charlie Kirk, didn't finish community college. So he's not in the academic arena. He's a spokesperson that hasn't chosen who speaks about colleges and universities without being a part of that system. He's not theologically trained in any way, shape, or form. He's not inside of any religious community's leadership. He's not a religious leader like that. He's not an academic leader. He is a political spokesperson, And look, you don't have to go to college to be a strong political spokesperson. You don't even have to go to the seminary to be a out speaking out loud Christian. No, but you're not a clergy. He's not in academia. He is the person who runs a nonprofit that exists for the sheer purpose of recruiting young people to vote for Donald Trump. He's a political operative. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know why he was killed. We don't know the meaning of the meaning intention behind the shooter. But here's what I'm pretty sure of, Rob, and I'm interested in your response to this. The chances that this Mormon-raised kid living in Utah somehow became a lefty wokey and shot and killed Charlie Kirk because he thinks Charlie Kirk is too conservative is very hard for me to reconcile. Possibly, but nothing the boy has said that anyone has ever claimed publicly that he has said, anything he's ever written, any of the chat rooms online that he's been on are not part of the left woke world. But they are part of the even more extreme hard right world. Now, was any of that the motivation for what he did? We don't know. But for Donald Trump, for the governor of Utah, for congressperson and senator after senator on the Republican side, to immediately say the only person who would kill Charlie Kirk is someone who has left Democrat-leading political agenda is a reaction and not a response, and completely inappropriate. Yeah. Totally and completely. Just like the murderer of Melissa Hortman. When we found out so much more about a person disguising himself as a police officer and coming to the door and wearing a mask and getting into the house that way, this whole thing changed significantly on who the person was and how he was acting and what he was doing. Yeah. So the responses will not match the reactions. And I don't know what reaction we're going to get from the hard right if they find out that this shooter was more connected to the extreme right than the extreme left. Yeah. That is going to create a set of conditions that I think are going to be extremely difficult. What do you think about all that?
Yeah. Did you have to ask ChatGPT what groiper means?
I did. I did have to. After you sent in a text the word groiper, I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know if this is one of those hipster phrases, one of those right-wing phrases. I didn't know what it was. Right. I still barely understand what it is or what it was.
Yeah. So I mean, the media and the immediate reaction of Republicans has been that this must be some, trans kid who's, gone all woke. And as it turns out, the shooter's roommate and possibly, romantic partner, is someone who's trans. And so, it seems like there's not easy categories with this one.
Yes.
But one of the other things that has come out is that there's pictures, there's statements, even, some of the things written on the ammunition seem to be associated with a whole online community that is driven by memes and ironic, using statements, using phrases, ironically, and also in support of another podcaster, because let's remember Charlie Kirk built his audience by podcasting. Mm-hmm. And another podcaster, a guy named Nick Fuentes, you might remember him as the guy that went with Kanye West to Mar-a-Lago and had dinner with Donald Trump, and people like us went, "Hey, Donald, you're literally having dinner with a Nazi
at your house."
At your house, yeah. And Donald Trump said, "I didn't know who he was. He just was, came with ye."
Yeah.
And Nick Fuentes is he is not. He's no longer supportive of Donald Trump because Nick Fuentes is further right. So Groypers are supporters. It's kind of the clan that follows after Nick Fuentes, and these are people that are further right. And what tends to happen is, as you move on the political spectrum, people tend to fight, and people tend to argue most not with people who are at the opposite end of the spectrum from them, but they argue most with the people that are like close to them on the spectrum, that are next to them on the spectrum, because they see those as people they could move a certain way. So there seems to be that there's been some, tension with Nick Fuentes and Charlie Kirk.
Can I make a little just editorial comment about that? Because I want to hear the rest of your explanation. Do you remember back in 9/11, 24 years ago now, there was a lot of confusion about how ISIS or not ISIS, how
Taliban?
Not the Taliban. What
Osama bin Laden?
Yeah, but what was that group called? Wow, here's 24 years. Al-Qaeda. How Al-Qaeda was organized. Isn't that weird to even say that word? Like it sort of disappears. Yeah. And a lot of us spent a lot of time being instructed that these were not state actors. This was not a country that sent someone, even though a number of them were from Saudi Arabia. So Donald Trump being so close to the Saudi Arabians is still something that bothers so many people who believe that Saudi Arabia was funding the Al-Qaeda attack. But we had to hear about these networks that were organized differently than your typical warfare. And it actually introduced into a lot of modern, citizen parlance what military leaders and people who work on the global stage were talking about for a long time. And we had to think about how different that way of being organized was for a terrorist attack. Mm-hmm. There are political movements in the country that don't just follow along on a horizontal spectrum line. How conservative are you? How liberal are you? And then moving further from some center point, which is kind of the imagination a lot of us have. So we tend to think, well, how are these people organized? And when some people might hear you say that someone like Nick Fuentes, who's super, super right wing, would not be someone supportive of Trump. Some people are like, I don't understand how that could, like the most extreme right people are the Trump people. They're organized not on that continuum. Yep. They're organized with a different set of questions and organizing principles than are on a political left-right typical continuum. In fact, even talking, as we do often here, about how far left or how far right or the lefties or the wokies or whatever, is not very descriptive, right? It's kind of like using a map and looking at a map and then thinking about the fact that the reality of the Earth is a spherical globe, right? Yeah. And it has undulations and ups and downs. So this picture you get on a map tells you some things about location, but it actually doesn't describe altitude. It doesn't describe geography. It doesn't describe the bend of the Earth. So there's a lot of things you don't see. And this is what's going to come out in these conversations where a lot of us who are going to be, but this kid should be on the right. And then, but why would he think this way about trans people? If it's because it's not organized the way a lot of us think about the person just a little less conservative or a little more conservative than we are. Yes. Because that distance to see is very easy to sort of make a comparison. But once somebody's organized in a structure completely different, it's very hard for them. And that's not just true on the right. That's true on the left as well. Yes. Yes. And there's kind of that old illustration of like, you look this way at a ridge of mountains and you see one, and then you
you turn your perspective and there are deep valleys in between multiple mountains.
Yes.
And it's a matter of perspective and, or, taking your map idea a different way. If we think about, you look at a map and you think about what is a Midwesterner?
Yeah.
What is a Southerner?
Yeah.
What is, someone from the Northeast? What is, West Coast? Well, listen.
Yeah.
Someone from South Carolina is not the same kind of Southerner as someone from Kentucky.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Someone from Seattle is not the same kind of West Coast person as someone from Orange County, California.
Yep. Even though they're
Someone
in the same time zone and
someone from Maine is not the same kind of New Englander as, or Northeasterner as someone from Philadelphia.
Or Miami.
Yeah. Like there are similarities that bind them together, but there's also really significant nuances. And we've got to recognize that people move around. I'm a Midwesterner living in the South.
Yep.
Who loves chicken and waffles and sweet tea now,
hey, which I had chicken and waffles for the first time yesterday in Seattle of all places. But anyway, I see why you're into it.
There is a chicken and waffles restaurant that's what they serve.
Wow.
That is being constructed right now in Fayetteville, and I cannot wait for it to be open. See, my favorite breakfast restaurant, Susan's, as you know, I've taken you there, Doug. Their chicken and waffles, the waffles fantastic. The chicken is like the chicken nuggets, chicken strip kind of thing that they normally that they serve. I like a good piece of fried chicken.
Yeah. Dark meat fried chicken. Yeah. To the vegans, sorry, we're going down this road. But
anyways.
Yeah, pulling that off the bones. Great.
All this to say, this kid that did this shooting, I don't know if we're ever going to be able to pin a motivation on him.
Or plot it on a map as we see the map. Yep.
From what we know right now, it could be that he was upset with Charlie Kirk about trans issues in, defense of his partner. And he's, and so okay, tag him with the wokey woke thing. Or it could be he was upset with Charlie Kirk for not being conservative enough.
Mm-hmm. Or both.
There's no, or, we just don't know. And what we've got in the rush to declare this the greatest Super Bowl of all time is we have the really irresponsible words of the President of the United States.
Yes, it's just
the
disgusting.
Attorney General of the United States, the FBI Director of the United States, pegging this on left-wing extremism.
Yes.
There's a couple of things here. Number one, we don't know that it is left-wing motivated violence. We don't know that. So we don't know that yet. And we certainly didn't know it. We knew it even less at the time that
Trump they said it
and his administration were saying. Number two, listen, I don't want to put this in left-wing and right-wing categories necessarily, because political violence is a real problem no matter how it's motivated. And so but I want to for those that are saying that it's, these radical leftists that, and Trump went down and named a number of instances as examples of in his really looking like it was AI produced video from the Oval Office in his speech about Charlie Kirk. He listed a number of examples of left-wing political violence and blamed it all on them. Listen, this is from the Cato Institute. Doug, Cato Institute, big lefty group?
rarely accused of being left-wing, the Cato Institute, by their own admission, trying to service the conservative field of candidates and voters in America.
This is from the Cato Institute 5 days ago. Murders in politically motivated terrorism, excluding 9/11. 1% unknown or other. 1% separatism. 1% foreign nationalism. 10% left-wing motivated. 23% Islamism motivated, their word. 63% right-wing motivated.
The Cato Institute. Just looking at the facts of the people who, by their own statements, their own manifestos, committed political acts of violence, 63% right-wing. What was it, 10% left-wing?
Yeah.
Now, the numbers don't always tell you everything.
No.
But every once in a while they do.
Yeah. So listen, the 10% of left-wing motivated political murders, 100% wrong.
Yes. The 10% is 100% wrong.
But let's not begin to buy into a narrative that there's this crazy, violent, extremist left wing that wants to destroy America and will do anything to just gun down their opponents.
Yes.
Doug, within moments of Charlie Kirk's assassination, right-wing leaders and influencers online were immediately talking Civil War.
Yes. And look, if it had been
let me just follow up. When the state house leader in Minnesota was shot and killed by someone who appeared to be motivated by right-wing ideology and posed as a police officer and shot her to death in the doorway of her home. Do you remember a single left-wing Democratic leader, influencer, provocateur saying Civil War?
I don't remember anyone calling for Civil War. I do recall them immediately blaming it on right-wing activists and right-wing people.
Yeah.
And look, there's a role.
You have to be correct.
It's true. There is a role for commentators and social constructionists, people who spend their time constructing the social narratives of our country. They're going to do a thing. They have to respond instantly. There's a whole call and response demand inside that work that those people do. But our political leaders are not supposed to play that role.
Yes.
What Pam Bondi, what Kash Patel, what the governor of Utah, and most chief among sinners, Donald Trump, did and continue to do to today is behave like social commentators, not political leaders.
Yeah.
And that is such a confusion of roles. When Donald Trump said on Fox News a day ago, the Fox News hosts did everything they could, Rob. Did you see it? Everything they could to get him to say, Americans are really scared.
Yes.
What do you say to them? His response, I couldn't care less.
Yep.
When they said, look, there are people on the political right who commit these acts of violence and people on the left, Donald Trump said, oh, yeah, the people on the right, they try to blame them. But doing my best to quote Donald Trump, do you know why the people on the right do it? Because they hate the amount of crime happening in America and they're trying to make America safer. The reason the left are doing it is because they hate America, not because they hate crime. That is the president of the United States on his chosen news program, sitting with the interviewers on a couch, talking. No little gotcha question. They're setting him up over and over, and he couldn't do it. He could not say political violence must not end. He came right up to the line of saying it's inappropriate when it's people on the left and necessary when it's people on the right. That would, if you were to write a term paper summarizing the statement of Donald Trump that way, your teacher would have a hard time in 9th grade not granting you a B+ on interpreting Donald Trump's words. One is justified, the other is not. And that's the same view that same man had on the other act of political violence, which was January 6th, when they attacked the U.S. Capitol, and he said, but that's not a crime because the reason they did it was a good one. So I'm pardoning them all. Yeah. This is a guy who traffics in political violence, either violence done at the behest of politicians or done to politicians. He is a guy who's trafficked in it and continues to push it to the point at which 2:09 Central Time on the 16th of September, 2025. And that, friends, is just a sheer fact. Now, you might agree with him, you may not, but it is just simply true. Yeah. When the chief law enforcement officers of the United States, in their incompetence and their bias against other American citizens, will simply blame them for their own deaths. And by the way, Donald Trump was asked yesterday, you didn't lower the flags when a Minnesota elected official was gunned down for political purposes. You didn't call for a national lowering of the flags. You know what his response was? The governor of Minnesota didn't ask me to. Those are requests that come through governors. We get a lot of them. He didn't ask. If he had asked, I certainly would have considered it. The governor of Utah, the governor of Arizona, the two places where Charlie Kirk lived and where Charlie Kirk was murdered, didn't ask Donald Trump to lower the flags. Yeah. He chose to do it. He chose to make a national martyr out of one and not out of the other. His choice, not the governor's. And that is what the American people need to recognize in this president. Yeah.
We know that there is a critical function of the presidency that Donald Trump is absolutely terrible at. And that is being comforter in chief. Okay. He's not a warm and fuzzy person. So part of the role of the presidency, of the president, is to comfort Americans in traumatic times. You think Reagan during the Challenger explosion, you think George W. Bush, 9/11, I think of Obama singing Amazing Grace at the, just breaking into a chorus of Amazing Grace at the funeral following church shooting. These are critical moments in American history where we are shaken by something that has happened, and the president of the United States steps in to the comforter in chief role.
Yep.
Donald Trump, I remember back during COVID, during his first term, he was given the opportunity he was asked by a reporter, hey, there's a bunch of Americans that are scared right now. What would you say to them? Oh, it's a softball question.
Yeah.
It's a softball question to be the comforter in chief. And he said, his response was, I'd tell him that you're a nasty reporter and that's a nasty question. Like, what? It was a bizarre response.
Yes.
Donald Trump's response to the shooting of Charlie Kirk. And listen, I'm not a conservative. I'm not a fan of Charlie Kirk. Not. It was traumatic seeing that video. Like, This is something that shook all of us. This is an opportunity for the comforter in chief to say, hey, listen, we're going to turn the temperature down. We're going to take a collective deep breath. We're going to recognize that we are screaming towards a cliff that none of us want to go off. Let's mutually assured destruction is not what we want in the United States. Let's take a minute and feel for this family and hug your neighbor and try to recapture a bit of what makes us Americans. That is not at all what he said.
Why do you think he didn't say it? Because he's not good at his job, or because he doesn't believe it?
I don't think he believes it.
I think so. I think that's it too. I don't think it's like he's temperamentally not good at it. He gets awkward.
I don't think he's temperamentally not good at it either. But you know what it reminded me of? Doug?
He just doesn't believe that.
It reminded me of the Oklahoma City bombing that Bill Clinton blamed on Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was not Rush Limbaugh's fault that Timothy McVeigh bombed the Oklahoma City federal building.
Right. No, he just gave psychological aid and comfort to Timothy McVeigh.
It took a moment that should be about stepping into that role of comforter in chief, and instead making it the opportunity. Remember when they would always talk about the I remember, speaking of Rush Limbaugh, would always talk about how Democrats were so, in Obama in particularly, so motivated by is it Saul Lizin? The Rules for Radicals. Yeah, that book, and the idea of never wasting a crisis.
Yeah,
taking the opportunity of a crisis to score political points, to extend your power, to defeat your enemy. That's what we saw Donald Trump do. And I think it is less, I don't think he's compassionate. I don't think he thinks that right-wing motivated political violence doesn't happen, or doesn't happen more than left-wing political violence. I don't think he thinks any of that. I think he thinks this is a chance for me to defeat the Democrats.
Okay, so I don't even give him that much credit. I think that what Donald Trump did in those interviews and all of his comments was just said the very same thing he would have said if Charlie Kirk hadn't been murdered. He's not even taking advantage. He's just running the script. It's so hardwired. It's part of the operating system of this man. Doesn't matter what you would say to him. When he was asked, why didn't you lower the flags for Representative Hortman when she was murdered? What did he initially launch? The same thing. You could have said to him, hey, it's hot in Arkansas today. And he would have launched into, and you know what else? And would have said all the same stuff. That's what's so horrible about when you watch Donald Trump's reaction to what the interviewers are saying. He's not calculating oh, here's a real chance and I'm going to be a real POS for using this politically. He doesn't care. He's going to say the same thing he says every time, unshaken by any reality. And this is the feature that so many Trump people who support him like about him, is that he is not moved by information or facts. Isn't that even more sad, really, when you think about it, that he didn't say, hey, let's capitalize on this. He just said, we're going to capitalize on every single moment, and every chance we have, we're going to tell you how nasty and dangerous 60% of America is. And you should fear your fellow citizens. And the only thing we should do is use the power of policing and power of the military to crack down on him. That's what he says all the time. He is not met ever with a piece of information that knocks him off of the same bullshit he talks about constantly.
Yes.
This is why it is so insidious. The murder of a friend of his own being shot at, And a man dying and a shooter dying didn't move him for 1 second. People tried to say, oh, he was really shaken at the National, Republican Convention. He was really soft-hearted. But not for a minute. The only thing he worried about was his life going to be in jeopardy. And I understand that. I mean, no one's going to shoot at me. And I was thinking about it going to Seattle this weekend and being a part of an anti-ICE walk through part of a town near Seattle. Like, yeah, you really do think about it. But that's all he's thinking about. He doesn't care for 1 minute. He will say the same thing about Charlie Kirk while talking about Charlie Kirk's murder and then bring up that Donald Trump thinks Charlie Kirk's wife is attractive. You know what? The beauty of his wife has nothing to do with it. It's so fundamentally insulting that what Donald Trump thinks he should mention about the now widow of Charlie Kirk is that she's attractive. Good Lord, man. He just cannot say anything else. And so, friends, we are locked into a little over 1,100 days where this man is going to continue to demean the country and demean the presidency. And he will do it no matter who is harmed, no matter what is happening. And he will say the same thing that he said when he came down that escalator, that the woke Democrats want to kill you. And they want to do it by letting all of those immigrants in to do their killing for them. Yeah. So even though his own friend and political operative was murdered, he couldn't say anything to anyone else other than the same thing he says every time. The level of like obsessiveness with this guy that he can't say anything else. Now, somebody watching our podcast or listening to our podcast might say, well, you guys are kind of that way about Donald Trump. But the degree to which he cannot break script.
We are political. We are commenting on politics. We are not the president of the United States.
Thank you.
Yet.
Yeah, good point.
An example of this that then leads to, I think you're reading some of you got to put up some of these comments. From,
I should. We were some very insightful, beautiful comments. About
people are being healed in
what's happening. And then someone named Solomon is sharing some herbs, and people are jumping in.
These are testimonials about Dr. Solomon.
Yeah. Who has some magical herbs that they've started taking. And, well, hi, Emmy, Eric, who I don't think is a real human being. Nice job, Facebook. Take a little bit of that ad money and stop the bots.
Yeah. An example.
Should we be more afraid of AI and the bots than we are of a truly heartless man with the power of the presidency in his hand?
Donald Trump.
Good Lord.
Absolutely stays on script.
Yes.
And his henchmen in his administration are going to use this crisis to expand power. And one of those situations is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, made some announcements today about how she's going to be using federal hate speech laws to go after, people who make threats of violence towards politicians. And so Donald Trump was getting on Marine One today and was asked by a reporter from ABC, what do you make of Pam Bondi saying she's going to go after hate speech? Is this, do we have any concerns about, protecting free speech? And Donald Trump's response was, we should go after people like you. Because what you say about me is so unfair, and that's hate speech.
Yeah, it's not, and it's never going to be made illegal. And Donald Trump can sit in the corner and suck his thumb and cry and say, why don't you like me? All he needs to. But that is not ever, friends, family, hurting people in America. That's the nonsense Donald Trump says. Don't be afraid. It's never going to happen. You can say mean things. Now, you might not be able to say mean things about the president of the United States and maintain your friendships or your job or something else, but the government's not going to come after you. No. And in fact, most people are going to self-edit long before. Now, if Pam Bondi wants to put together something that classifies a group of people as victims of hate speech, that would be awesome. But when a young Mormon kid shoots Charlie Kirk, I'm not sure how you say Christians are being attacked by the demonic forces of America. I mean, look, I'm just going to be real blunt here. This kid's going to end up being much more of a right-wing operative and a right-wing product than he is anything else. And that's going to become something that that we will be debating about for the rest of time. Right. Same with the kid that shot at Donald Trump and killed killed the fireman. Same thing.
I want to ask you a
kid
question.
was a right winger.
Doug, who shot Abraham Lincoln?
Oh, we couldn't possibly know if Wilkes
Who
Booth
shot Abraham Lincoln?
You can't know, Rob. You can't. How you mean if a man jumps on the stage, throws his arms in the air, and screams, "I did it," and then something else, and then runs away, and later is killed?
You're missing the point I'm trying to make. Who shot
John Wilkes Booth?
Who shot John F. Kennedy?
Someone.
Lee Harvey
Oswald, they say.
Yeah. Okay. Who shot Ronald Reagan?
Couldn't possibly know.
John Hinckley?
John Hinckley. Couldn't know if he did it.
Really?
How would we ever? I know I'm ruining your bit, but I got my own bit I'm working here. How would we ever know, Rob? Who could tell us the truth about something? You can't know these kinds of things. All you can know is what people told you. Were you there? Did you do your own research?
Okay.
And the way I know it was Hinckley is because the character on The Greatest American Hero was named Ralph Hinckley, and it was my favorite show. And then they changed his name to Ralph Hanley just after that with audio dubs over it because they already recorded the whole show before it aired live with the name of the person who shot the president.
Yeah. So
Hinckley.
We've got these names: John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald, John Hinckley. Doug, who shot Donald Trump?
Thomas Matthew Crooks.
Did you just look that up?
No, I looked it up a little bit ago before we got into this.
Because you knew this was.
No,
coming?
I was gonna.
Does anybody know the answer to this question? I mean, seriously, you had to look it up because you didn't know.
Yeah. My own sister, who's very politically engaged and smart, when we were talking about Charlie Kirk's murder and then we talked about Trump being shot at, she didn't know that someone had died other than the shooter. She didn't know that Corey Comparatori, the fireman, was hit by the bullet that Thomas Matthew Crooks fired, and the shooter died. They shot and killed him on the roof. He fired his few shots, and then Secret Service fired at him and killed him. They killed him right away instead of waiting later when somebody else came up in an underground parking garage and shot Lee Harvey Oswald. Or they went on the hunt for John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah.
No, it is interesting that our new media landscape has chosen to not give shooters names. But I think that's... I don't know where you're going with all that. I will say what I think that's about is that the culture of reporting has changed since the Columbine school shootings to not justify and to not make heroes out of people who are shooting other people. So I think that's where it lies. But it is interesting that on the right, they have not taken the name Thomas Matthews Crooks and made it. If that kid had been a hardcore left-winger, this 20-year-old young kid with a rifle, like the 22-year-old young kid with a rifle that killed Charlie Kirk, if they were convinced and had overwhelming information that these people were were left wingers, they would be saying their names all the time. So I think the fact that the right wing mechanism and machine. Now I'm going to be a little conspiratorial for a minute. You want to hear my conspiracy?
Ooh, here we go. I like it. Yeah.
I do not trust Kash Patel.
Israel had Charlie Kirk shot. Benjamin Netanyahu.
No, but I will say,
I heard that Benjamin Netanyahu was the first one to announce that Charlie Kirk had died on Twitter.
How did he know? How did he put a man in place?
Yeah.
And is that kid really that good of a shot?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could go down the line, endlessly here. I do not trust Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, or Kash Patel, the Director of the FBI, or Donald Trump, the President of these United States, to support the American people knowing what's going to come out in any conversations or confessions or investigations that go into Charlie Kirk's murderer. I don't think they're going to tell. It's going to be like the Epstein files. If there's anything in there that does not support their narrative, they will hide it. And for years, reporters are going to have to be suing and using public information demands to try to get information out about this kid. And I think the kid's family is not going to want to talk about any, if he is connected to the hard right wing and that was somehow motivating or somehow they're not going to be telling us about that. People are around them right now. They are shutting them up. I 100% am convinced of that. Does that start to seem like the government is acting in ways to keep things from the American people that the American people need to know? And yes, I think they are truly conspiring to keep this information from us. It is, by the definition of a conspiracy. The Attorney General, the President of the United States, the investigators, the family, the head of the FBI, they are all going to keep information from us, and we're not going to know. Just like we don't know about Thomas Matthew Crooks. We don't know about this kid who I believe shot at Donald Trump and killed Fireman Corey, whose last name I can't pronounce, Comparatori, and wounded another person.
Yeah.
We don't hear anything about it, and not because just the media doesn't want to cover it, but there's no motivation for the person who shot at Donald Trump just over a year ago. If that was a left-winger, Donald Trump would have said, and the left-wing guy that shot at me. Even though I think Donald Trump doesn't like to even bring up the fact that he was shot at because I think it made him look weak, even though, the bloody ear thing made him look strong. I think he's like, let's not go down that road. So, but I think they are keeping all of that kind of information where normally a shooter, you'd have at a presidential level, you'd have all kinds of information out about. So why do they keep it? I think it's because it doesn't reinforce their narrative and they want to keep the truth about it quiet.
Yeah. Yep.
That's my conspiracy theory, and I'm proud to tell you I think it's certainly a theory, right? I'm theorizing, and I'm theorizing about a conspiracy that the government is committing. I think there's a conspiracy for Trump to cover up the Epstein file stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got Edward just asked a question, which is about the different reactions that have happened in particularly in church life. And Doug, I think going back to the point you made very early on in this conversation, Charlie Kirk was primarily a political operative. That's why we know him. I might even say he's primarily a podcaster. But he was not a religious leader. But his shooting has immediately sparked strong reactions in the religious world because he was outspoken about his faith, to say the least. I drove by a sign at a church in my town in Arkansas, many, many miles away from Utah, where the shooting took place. very, very far from Arizona, where Charlie Kirk lived. And that sign said that Charlie Kirk is now wearing a martyr's crown. Immediate identification of Charlie Kirk as a martyr. And that has been very, very common response. Now, there's also been those who have kind of pushed back against that, not in the completely inappropriate celebratory kind of reactions that people had, I think, in the same way that we saw inappropriate reactions on the right. I think we also saw inappropriate reactions on the left. But there has also been amongst religious leaders, and particularly the black pastor that Edward references, whose video went viral earlier, who in his sermon on Sunday basically said, listen, we're not going to celebrate the shooting of Charlie Kirk, but we're also not going to pretend like this was some kind of saint. Here's someone who peddled in racism, who divided us, someone who, he lived his life in such a way that, his tragic death does not replace what we know about how he lived. So there's these two very different narratives about Charlie Kirk and the life that he lived and what his legacy will be. Is it the legacy of a martyr to be celebrated and honored? Is it the legacy of a person who peddled in hate and division and should be, not celebrated, to say the least?
I've been thinking a lot about this, and I don't think it's appropriate for any member of one group or an individual to tell another group or individual who they should grant martyr status to. There was a saying, again, back to 9/11, that one person's freedom fighter was another person's terrorist. There were car bombers whose lives are then seen as martyrs for their cause inside of Islam. I wouldn't grant them, in some sectors of Islam, I wouldn't grant them that. There are some people who think that about victims in the horrific murders that have taken place in Israel and then the murders that have taken place in Gaza. I think martyrdom and honoring a person's life and granting some sort of interpretive narrative about a person's life that is connected to how they died and when they died, that's for members of each community to decide. So I am all for the pastor who says, hey, in this community, we're not going to honor that life because of the totality of what he was up to and what his project was. And then there's another group of people who will say, we found those very same things to be heartfelt and a part of the faith that we all hold, and we see this as a great loss, and we believe he was killed because of saying those things. Martyrdom it's like sainthood, like, look, I don't grant sainthood to any, I'm not Catholic. I don't do a Catholic sainthood thing. I recognize that Catholics say someone is a saint. I don't, and I frankly don't even comment on it. I just don't have a category of saints like that, right?
Human beings have created mythical characters, have turned real people into mythical characters as a way to further their beliefs, further their agenda, inspire people, all of that, in positive terms. And if somebody's going to do that, somebody's going to do that.
Yeah. I just want to be clear here.
It causes you to downplay the flaws and overemphasize the strengths. And,
yes. And look, Martin Luther King Jr. is a great example. I grew up believing a curated narrative about Martin Luther King Jr., about who he was and what he did.
Yeah.
The one that I grew up with was extremely positive. There was never a dark shadow in it. Yeah. It was in college and young adulthood when I started to learn, Oh, he treated women that way, and he had these affairs, and he was also working not just for racial change in the United States, but he was opposed to the Vietnam War, and there were lots of people who, all of a sudden, he got much more complicated at his personal life, his family life, his political life became much more complicated.
Yep.
People can make decisions along the way. I have no problem honoring Martin Luther King with as full of a view as I currently have. I don't know that I have the fullest view that would be available to me, but the one that I have, I still honor his life. I could see how somebody else would say, like, look, I'm all for what he did in this one area, but I disagree with him on Vietnam, or I disagree with him on guns, or I disagree with him on other political issues, or I think that he should have been a more upstanding person with women and with his own family. Yeah, okay, I'm all for that.
Yep.
People can make those decisions. What I would just ask the supporters of Charlie Kirk to look at is the totality of the things that he has chosen, that, again, Charlie Kirk has chosen to make public. No one at this point is running around digging up Charlie Kirk's backstory.
Yeah.
No one has come out yet with, let me tell you what I really know about the guy. That's not out.
No one's trying to find Charlie Kirk's username on a Discord chat group.
I'm sure they are, but that's not what anybody who's critiquing Charlie Kirk's life has gotten into yet. What they're critiquing is this stuff.
No secret.
That's it. Is the stuff Charlie Kirk actually said and made a point to say and propagated.
It was recorded and posted on the internet.
Himself, like he recorded himself speaking and posted those things. Yeah. That is, so take that in. But also, people who are opposed to Charlie Kirk and all the things that he says, he also said some things that were not that horrible. And he gave some good advice to young people. And he talked about how people could be involved in the world. We are all complicated. So if you want to demean and say his life is not worthy, do that with as full of worthy for martyrdom. Look at the totality. And if you want to make him a martyr, look at totality. That would be my advice. Or how about this? We stop making martyrs out of people. Not only we stop killing them, but we just get rid of the category. And we recognize that this hero, villain, victim nonsense is killing us. That Charlie Kirk is a sojourner in life with the rest of us, was murdered by another, a tale that literally goes back to Cain and Abel in the narratives of the Christian and Jewish communities. Brother killing brother, we do that stuff for all kinds of bad reasons, and rarely, if ever, for anything you'd call a good reason. But we can stop making martyrs out of people. And subtext, the little picture that makes so many, I've seen so many people see it and they've lost their mind. You know, it's Abraham Lincoln and then, I don't know, maybe Martin Luther King Jr. and then Kennedy and then Martin Luther King Jr. and then Jesus, or Charlie Kirk and then Jesus. Yeah, you know that. And then so you put them all in a photo together. I have no problem with that. You can look, you clump any 5 or 6 people and put them in a photo together, and you know what you ought to see? The light of the world, the salt of the earth, the beloved children of God. End of story. But then you put some little slogan under it that says all of them were killed for what they said, and there you've become a participant in fan fiction. Yeah. None of those people were killed for what they said. They were all killed for the power of their actions. They were killed for what they did, not for what they said. The opponents to all of those people were not bothered by the words coming from their mouths. Yeah. They were opposed to them because of the power of their actions. Yeah. I don't know if I'm just saying the people who opposed Charlie Kirk opposed him for the power of his actions, not for what he said. That's the difference between freedom of speech and action. You can say anything you want until it begins to harm another. And that is how we do it in America. And that's just how we do it in life. It does hurt your feelings. I mean, look, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That little saying that we said as a kid. I used to think everybody said it, but come to find out all the sayings I said as a kid, everybody doesn't say all of them. So maybe you didn't even say that one. Did you say that one as a kid, Rob? Sticks and stones can hurt my bone, may hurt my bones, but names will never break my bones, but names will never hurt me. He said that? Yeah. You know who doesn't believe that's true? The president of the United States, the president of the United States, who's such a little snowflake. You hurt my feelings. You don't like me. You're mean to me. You should be shut down. You should lose your job. I mean, this guy just sticks and stones it for a minute. 78-year-old real estate developer. Toughen up a little bit, tough guy. People can say stuff about you and you're going to be okay. But yeah, no, words hurt people. They hurt your feelings. But you know what hurts people more? Punching somebody in the face or shooting them in the throat. Like, can we please just separate a little bit the level of harm that we can do to each other into some meaningful categories? I think that would be, if any lesson could be learned from all of this. Somebody saying, I think you should have the right to bear arms, even if it means some people are going to die, is not as bad as somebody going in and shooting a bunch of school kids. They're not on the same moral ground. They're not. And people on every side of an issue and every side of the political spectrum, we conflate this stuff. And if anyone thinks Charlie Kirk should be killed for the stuff he said or the thoughts in his head, I would humbly call you to repent and change your path on that. No, he shouldn't. I'm barely comfortable with someone saying because of what he did, he should be killed by another. We can't be going around shooting each other. Nobody asked, I've forgotten the name of Charlie Kirk's shooters. Nobody asked that kid to be the one to solve a Charlie Kirk problem.
Yeah. You mentioned the meme of Jesus and Martin Luther King and Kennedy and Lincoln and Charlie Kirk. This was just the latest and really a stark example of just how divided my Facebook friends are.
It calls into it's a sifter. Yep.
Oh, sheep and goats just going into their pens themselves.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
That's a good point.
As a person, like many people, a lot of conservative Christian friends, where I grew up, how I grew up, all of it. I now travel in some pretty progressive circles. And oh my goodness. I felt like I was standing in the middle of a road going, well, I don't agree with either of them.
Yeah. And the degree to which those people want to come talk about their differences on your social media commentary platform is what I find so odd. I'm like, I don't care what you guys post, but what are you doing over here saying it? And like, what? Why'd you stop by my house, walk in the door, and start yelling it in my family room? Like, I don't know. I just put up my point of view. What are you doing in my comments? I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but that drives me out of my mind. I'm like, look, I'm not telling you not to say your thing, Dan. I'm not telling you not to say your thing, Steve. I'm just saying, don't be using, like, you have a Facebook account. Say it over there. You're not even talking to me. Like if you were responding and we were like having a conversation, but it's as if you just walked into a room. I was sitting with people and started talking to them. Yeah. Like, what do you do? It's one of the more odd things of social media, kind of overall, especially Facebook comments. Facebook comments are something of their own. Like the way that whole thing is structured and how it functions. It's its own little weirdo spot. But maybe that's not the kind of thing you were referring to, but I was just constantly amazed and bothered by that.
Yeah, I was just blown away by just how so many of my friends could have the exact opposite positions.
Yep.
Just really.
And look, and maybe my earlier advice is not useful for anybody or even something I'll agree with later. I don't know, but you don't have to be having an opinion about Charlie Kirk's life.
Right. You don't have to.
None of us.
You don't have to. You could say,
as failed vice presidential candidate and Minnesota governor likes to say, mind your own damn business.
yeah,
Like you can say, hey, I heard the stuff he said. I saw how his things were used. I saw how he was a part of a whole mechanism of politics. Fair enough to talk about. The guy's life, I don't know. We can separate out a life from a behavior.
yep.
You know what you could almost do, Rob? You could almost hate the sin and not have an opinion about the sinner. Nothing wrong there. When someone cuts me off on the road, I can be mad that they cut me off and not mad at the driver. You can find it despicable that Charlie Kirk said those things and communicated those ideas and propagated communities to act around them, and not hateful at the man. You really can.
Yeah.
I am not doing, I mean, I'm obviously making fun of the, hate the sin, love the sinner kind of thing. But there is a means by which someone can say, your behavior I speak against, and you I either care for, am indifferent about, or have no opinion about. It's completely not only within your power, probably a thing you should try. We don't all have to form an opinion about everyone and everything and somehow try to hold it into consistency in the flash of an eye. The number of people I know who are like, this Charlie Kirk, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, how long have you been following Charlie Kirk? Because I've been following him for like 8 years. And they're like, oh, I just heard of him yesterday. I didn't know who he was. I'm like, okay.
Yep. Yep.
Apparently you're an easy mark here for forming an opinion about another human being's life. Like that is wild.
Yes.
Absolutely wild. Like, look, not everybody has to be like, hey, I was bothered by Charlie Kirk when he was trying to run the Falkirk Center over at, Liberty University with Jerry Falwell. But some of us have been tracking the guy for a long time and know people who know him very, very well. And that's me. And I don't have an opinion about the guy's life. You don't have to. I have an opinion about his function, about his behavior, about what he's doing. And sometimes words are doings. But I don't have an opinion about the guy. Am I nuts on this, Rob? Honestly, or
No,
am I missing?
right.
Am I missing something from all of this?
I wrote a chapter in one of my books about practicing suspended judgment. That sense of like, when someone gets nominated to be a Supreme Court justice, within 4 minutes of learning their name, we all think we're experts on every aspect of their lives. And it's like, can we just pump the brakes here a little bit? And I totally agree with you that those who would, friend of mine who was like, oh, who is that? Like, probably shouldn't be like, leading the charge on helping people understand what's taking place.
And even if you maybe knew the guy, maybe your own opinions about another human being's life is not what anyone needs from you.
Yeah.
But Rob, I will say, for self-quoting from your own book, I'm trying to find the cheers. I'm trying to find the cheers button. There you go. I thought the wah-wah was congratulations. Robb Ryerse wins the this week's podcast.
Running for Our Lives, a story of faith, politics, and the common good, available on Amazon.com.
Can you quote yourself and at the same time say, as I wrote in one of my books? Yes, well done. I mean, what's the point in just saying it again fresh when you've got to give credit where credit is due, which is to yourself? By the way, y'all, Rob and I have both written books. This is a trick publishers or authors do all the time. And it's kind of a fun little game, actually. I mean, some people take themselves way too seriously, but some of us, it's just kind of a fun little game to find out a way where you can slip in the fact that you wrote a book. Oh, yeah. Like after your friend self-quotes, and then you say, well, both of us have written books, and this is a thing we do. That's just all part of the whole little fun. But what else it is we then we have to put up with is we have copies of those books in our homes, garages, and basements that we try to give away at festivals, and still come home with them. So yeah, that's.
Did you go back and pick up that box of free books that you had set out?
I didn't. I couldn't find them. I saw your picture of that, but then I went and looked there, and the box was not there. So I choose to believe that wanting people pick them up.
Someone found the empty box and recycled it.
Yeah, or might ship them to me if they found them still in the box. All right. Hey, thanks, y'all. We know this was a long podcast today, but we think,
Yep.
And God bless Charlie Kirk's family and his poor children.
Just awful.
I mean,
his wife and kids.
And Melissa Hortman's family and children in Gaza. And yes, you can have empathy for one, and it doesn't negate empathy for anyone else.
And you can have empathy even though Charlie Kirk said he didn't believe in it.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah. We can't even go down that route. But the level to which people were like, he said empathy is a bad thing, so therefore I'm not going to give him my empathy. Because you think...
Because empathy is a
just
bad
let
thing?
that... So, it's just... He said I did... He said breath wasn't necessary, so I'm going to stop breathing. I'm going to show him... What? You're going to harm yourself by not being empathic.
Yeah.
To prove that he was wrong about the need for empathy? What?
Yeah.
Tit for tat is no good.
Right.
Turn the cheek. Mm-hmm. Don't strike the other one. Sorry about being too moralistic, everybody, about the fact that there are ways that people should live morally. You shouldn't shoot each other. You shouldn't be bigoted against other people. You should reduce suffering. You shouldn't cause harm. These are rights and wrongs and rights and lefts and ups and downs. All right, good enough. We're almost done. It's just...
I recorded an interview today with a candidate running for the United States Congress in one of the most pivotal districts in the country.
Ooh.
Doug, you've heard me say that there's really only 15 competitive districts in the entire country.
I've heard you say that.
This is one of them.
Where is it? You have to listen to the podcast to find out?
Pennsylvania's 7th district, Allentown, Bethlehem.
And who did you speak with?
I spoke with Mark Pinsley, who is running for Congress there. And I just say all this to say, hey, when that conversation hits, you're going to want to listen, because this was an interesting dude, really interesting conversation. And he very well could be the next congressman from the Martin Guitar Factory.
Well, we do. I really do want him to win, and I really do want us to be part of it, because I really do want more access to the Martin Guitar Factory. But we can't promise yet when you're going to hear it. I'm going to be away from a microphone for the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to be starting on Saturday, and then I'm going to be recording some of my own interviews. Rob's got some of these interviews. So there's going to be a bunch of things coming out on our channels. But just not sure when, or if Rob's going to be running this one for the next couple of Tuesdays, or what's going to happen. So anyway, it's like a Secret Santa around here in the fall, as far as what's going to be on our podcast and who you're going to get it from and what you're going to hear. But thanks for sticking with us, and thanks for being a part of all this, and we'll catch you on the other side.